You do not need to raise your voice to protect your dignity. You do not need to get loud to show strength. Sometimes the most powerful response is calm, not because you are weak, but because you know who you are. We have all been there. Someone throws a rude comment your way, maybe in public, maybe at work, maybe from someone you thought was safe. Your heart starts racing, your mind scrambles for a comeback, and you feel stuck between two bad choices. Say nothing and feel small, say something and feel guilty. But there is a better way. This video is not about silencing rude people. It is about not letting them pull you out of character. It is about holding on to your voice when someone tries to steal your peace. You will learn how to respond without reacting, how to keep your center when someone else loses theirs, and how to speak in a way that feels true to who you are. Because confidence is not just how you carry yourself when people praise you. It is how you carry yourself when they try to tear you down. Let us walk through this together. You do not need to fight fire with fire. You just need to stay rooted when the heat rises. The words that hurt us most are rarely shouted. They come wrapped in a smirk, slipped into a passing comment, spoken casually but felt deeply. And when they hit, our instinct is often to react, to defend, to snap back and prove we are not the one to be messed with. But in doing so, we often give away something more valuable than our pride. We give away our peace. There is a better move, one that invites clarity without feeding the fire. Ask a question, a simple one. Did you mean what that sounded like? It is not a trap, it is a mirror. It reflects their words back at them without distortion or drama, because sometimes what they said and what they meant are not the same, and sometimes what they meant and what they want to admit are not aligned. This one question interrupts the pattern. It stops the escalation before it begins. It gives the other person a moment to reflect, to reframe, or to reveal. When you ask calmly, without edge or sarcasm, you are not accusing, you are inviting. And in that invitation, power shifts. Most people who throw out rude comments rely on ambiguity. They want you to doubt yourself. They want you to either explode or stay silent. What they are not ready for is calm accountability. You are not asking for an apology. You are offering them a chance to clarify or confess. Either response brings you clarity, and clarity is a gift. Sometimes they say, no, that is not what I meant, and the tension diffuses. Sometimes they double down, yes, I meant it, and now you know exactly where you stand. No guesswork, no replaying it all night, just truth spoken out loud. And here is the real power. You responded with poise, not panic. You gave yourself space to think instead of reacting on impulse. You stayed in control of you, and that is always the win. This technique is even more powerful in writing. If someone sends a passive-aggressive email or text and it lands wrong, you can reply with something like, just to clarify, did you mean it the way it reads? It is respectful, but firm. It signals maturity. It disarms aggression without inviting more of it. And most importantly, it reminds you that you do not have to match their tone to keep your ground. Because here is what happens when you stop seeking permission to protect your peace. You begin to build communication patterns that serve your clarity. And clarity is one of the most compassionate tools you can use. It says, I am not here to fight. I am here to understand, but I will not stay in confusion just to keep the conversation comfortable. People remember how you make them feel, and they remember how you respond when things get tense. If you can stay calm, ask questions, and let the truth surface on its own, you show strength in a way shouting never could. The question, did you mean what that sounded like, does not just hold the moment, it holds your integrity in place. It proves that you can be both strong and still, both assertive and respectful. This is how you stop rude words from living rent-free in your mind. You hold them up to the light. You ask the speaker to own them or reshape them. You choose not to be pulled into their energy. And when you do that often enough, you stop fearing confrontation because you have practiced a way through it that honors your values without sacrificing your voice. So the next time someone throws a subtle insult or slips in a jab wrapped in humor, do not respond with sarcasm or silence. Ask, not to provoke, not to punish, but to center yourself again. Did you mean that the way it came across? 9 words, calm tone, clear boundary, and a message underneath it all that says, I value clarity more than control, and I respect myself too much to pretend I did not hear it. Some of the most damaging things people say are the ones they never say directly, not insults, not criticism, just subtle digs hidden behind polite tones and carefully chosen words. That is the language of passive aggression. It lives in the quiet jabs, the tone that says one thing while meaning another, the compliment that somehow leaves you feeling small, and most people do not know how to respond to it because it gives you nothing to grab onto. It leaves you doubting whether you heard it right. It confuses you into silence. That is what makes it effective and dangerous. But there is a way to bring that behavior out of the shadows without lighting a fire. You do not accuse, you reflect, you hold up a verbal mirror. You say something like, it sounds like you are upset, or it seems like you are frustrated, and suddenly the conversation has structure again. You are naming what is being hinted at. You are pulling the unspoken into the open, not to escalate, but to clarify. This is not confrontation. It is calibration. You are giving the other person a chance to clarify their message or admit what they are feeling. You are inviting honesty without demanding it. And most importantly, you are signaling that you are not afraid of what they are trying to hide. The moment you name the feeling beneath their words, you disarm the game. Passive aggression only works when it stays vague. When you step in and say, it seems like there is something more behind that comment, you are not just addressing the words, you are addressing the energy underneath. You are refusing to let subtext control the tone of the conversation. And here is the truth. Most people are not even fully aware they are doing it. They are uncomfortable expressing frustration directly, so they leak it in sarcasm or fake politeness. Your job is not to shame them for that. Your job is to model something healthier, to show them that honesty does not have to be hostile, that emotion can be named without blame. When you say, it sounds like there is tension behind that statement, you are not calling them out, you are calling them in. You are creating space for a real conversation instead of letting unspoken frustration build beneath the surface. This technique also helps you stay grounded, because once you name what is happening, you do not carry it inside. You do not replay it all night wondering if you imagined it. You gave it a voice. You gave it direction. You did not let it live in your head. Passive-aggressive communication thrives in silence. It grows when no one says what they feel, but clarity interrupts that pattern. And you do not need to shout to create clarity. You just need to be steady enough to speak to what is really going on. When someone makes a cutting comment masked as humor, you can say, it sounds like that was more than a joke. When they give a backhanded compliment, you can respond with, it seems like there is something else on your mind. You are not accusing, you are noticing, you are observing what is true in the space between their words. And people feel that. They feel when you are paying attention without judgment. They feel when you are willing to have a real conversation. They may not always respond well, but that is not the goal. The goal is that you stay aligned with yourself, that you refuse to match their passive with your silence, that you choose clarity over comfort. Because the more you practice this, the more emotionally safe you become, not just for others, but for yourself. You become someone who does not let vague tension dictate the tone. Someone who brings peace into the conversation simply by naming what is usually left unspoken. That is leadership. That is maturity. That is what it means to communicate with integrity, even when the energy gets weird. Not every comment deserves a response. Not every moment of disrespect requires a comeback. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing, not because you are frozen, not because you have no words, but because you are choosing stillness as strategy. Silence is not weakness. It is not surrender. It is a decision. And when used with intention, it can shift the entire emotional balance in the room, because most people expect either escalation or submission. When you give them neither, when you simply pause and let the moment sit, they begin to feel the weight of their own words. Try this. Next time someone says something rude or sharp, pause for 4 seconds. Make eye contact, breathe, Say nothing. Let the silence do what your voice does not need to. That silence is not empty. It is full of presence, full of clarity, full of the unspoken message that you are not afraid and you are not available for unnecessary conflict. In that space, something powerful happens. The other person becomes aware of the moment, aware of the tone, aware that you are not reacting but observing. And in many cases, they will begin to shift. They might soften, they might retract, or they might try again, louder this time. Either way, you stay steady. Because silence is not about the other person. It is about you. It is about protecting your peace. It is about refusing to let someone else's chaos pull you off course. It is about making room for wisdom to speak before your ego does. There is a difference between silence that avoids and silence that anchors. One hides, the other holds. You are not using silence to disappear. You are using it to define. To remind both of you that you do not need to match energy to stay grounded. You do not need to respond on demand. You get to choose your pace, your posture, your presence. People who are used to getting reactions will not know what to do with stillness. They may misinterpret it. They may see it as weakness or confusion. But over time, they learn that you are not ignoring them. You are mastering yourself. And that is a different kind of power altogether. So practice the pause. Let silence walk into the room first. Let it clear the air before you speak. Let it remind you that just because something was said does not mean it has to be answered. Because sometimes the greatest show of strength is the restraint not to engage at all. It is one thing to understand a strategy. It is another to live it in real conversations. That is where the real test happens. Not in theory, but in tension. In the unexpected moment where the stakes feel personal and the emotions rise without warning. And that is why these tools matter most in the ordinary, messy moments of life. A listener wrote in about a coworker who keeps sending abrupt, cold emails that feel disrespectful. No greeting, no warmth, just instructions. They said it leaves them feeling dismissed, like they do not matter. And they asked, should I bring it up? Should I reply with the same coldness so they get the message? Here is what I offered. First, remember that tone in writing is always filtered through the reader's emotional state. The same sentence can feel different on different days. That is why clarity matters so much. Instead of reacting or mirroring the coldness, try something simple. You could respond with an "and." Just to clarify, was there something urgent about this, or is there flexibility on timing? That kind of question does two things. It slows the exchange down and it invites context. It also signals that you are paying attention to tone, but without calling it out directly. If the coldness is intentional, they will know you noticed. If it was accidental, you just gave them a graceful way to adjust. Another person shared about their mother, who often makes subtle digs during family dinners, jokes that seem harmless to others but feel sharp and targeted. The listener said, I do not want to ruin the meal by making a scene, but I always go home feeling small. This is where the tool, it sounds like, becomes powerful. The next time a comment lands that way, you could calmly say, it sounds like there is something more behind that. Are you upset with me about something? This is not an attack. It is a question. And it gently places the responsibility for the tone back where it belongs. It opens a door. If she brushes it off, at least you spoke your truth. And if she chooses to engage honestly, now there is space for a real conversation. Someone else asked about a moment in a meeting where they were interrupted and dismissed mid-sentence. They said they froze, they wanted to speak up, but felt like the moment passed. They asked, is it too late to say something? It is never too late to protect your voice. Even after the meeting, you can follow up with something like, I wanted to circle back to the point I was making earlier. I realized I got cut off and did not finish, and I think it matters. That is not confrontational, that is clear. It models self-respect without shaming anyone. And when you speak like that enough times, people begin to notice. They begin to realize you will not fight for space. but you will take it when it is yours. What these situations show us is that the real power of communication is not in grand speeches or perfect timing. It is in small, steady moments where you decide to stay aligned with who you are. You do not need to be sharp to be strong. You do not need to match energy to be heard. You just need to stay rooted in clarity. These tools do not make you immune to rudeness, but they keep you from becoming reactive. They give you a framework. They keep you steady when the room feels shaky. And they help you speak in a way that does not just protect your peace, but raises the standard for how others show up around you. Because communication is not just about being understood. It is about creating environments where honesty can breathe and dignity can grow. You do not have to meet rudeness with rage. You do not have to defend your worth in every room you enter. The truth is, the most powerful people are not the loudest. They are the ones who respond with clarity, not chaos. They are the ones who protect their peace like it is sacred, because it is. You have 3 tools now. Ask, did you mean to bring hidden intent into the light? Use it sounds like to name what is usually left unsaid. And when needed, hold space with silence that speaks louder than words. These are not tricks, they are habits. They are ways to hold your ground without losing your grace. And the more you use them, the more you become someone who does not just react to pressure, but transforms it. This is not about controlling others. It is about mastering yourself, about deciding every time who you want to be in the middle of discomfort. That is where growth lives. That is where leadership begins. And that is where your voice, steady and clear, becomes a force for peace in the spaces that need it most. If this resonated with you, subscribe to Daily 1% Impact. This is where we grow in real ways, one conversation at a time. You are not alone in this. Let us keep showing up with presence, with clarity, and with strength that does not shout but holds. Because every word you choose is a brick in the life you are building. Make them count, make them clean, make them yours.